Hello and welcome to another random chess puzzles video. So remember, solving tactics daily if you can will definitely help improve your chess. Let's see what is going on here. So you can solve these puzzles along with me. Pause at any time if you need to think a little bit longer. The king was in check here. So moves forward. Now the rooks are having a confrontation here. What advantage does black have? Well, these pawns are moving down the board, so that is not looking so good. Um, what do we do? All these runaway pawns. White has this pawn that's maybe ready to move forward, but our rook is under attack. So do we pick off a pawn and go after the next one? If we do that, the rook could get in behind here. And then we would be stuck playing defense. So what if we check? If we were to check, the king could move closer, where maybe to here. Oh, that's a little tricky. Well, even then the rook could get in front here. So yeah, this one's turning out to be a little trickier. If we check, the king does not want to move up here, or we could just go here and the king would not be able to make progress and we would promote. So the king would have to move here. And then what do we do? If we push forward, well, then the pawn would, or excuse me, the rook would step in the way here. So pretty tricky. If we just push, he'll just capture. So we probably have to move this rook and check. The king would be forced to go here. If we push forward, the rook could just block. And then what? Or do we check again? So check, king goes here. If we check again, well, then the king could move up. Then if we go here, I just don't see how this pawn can make it through here. All right. Well, I hope you're having better luck on this one than I am. So the obvious move seems to be to check the king here. But the king is going to go here. The king cannot go up here, or we just push the pawn. And the pawn would cut off the king being able to get closer along with the rook. Oh, okay. We just take the rook with check. The king goes here. Then we go here, and the king cannot get there in time. All right. Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully you found that one quicker than I did. So now we have a queen. And this queen should be able to just go on a rampage after these pawns. It is kind of tricky, though. I guess with checks, you would have time to get in the right position. But that is a lot of pawns to try and stop. Anyway, that was the the move that the computer wanted. On to the next one. Let's try and do better here. White has just repositioned this bishop, which was under attack by the pawn. What do we have in the area? We have a knight and a bishop and a rook. So what can we do? Oh, and we have this queen lined up on their queen. So I don't know. We could go after this pawn, which maybe that's the thing to do. Let's look at the material. So 6 pawns versus 7. They're ahead by 1 pawn. The rest of the material is even. So they're ahead by that pawn. First thing to do is look for checks. Well, the only thing that can check is our knight, which could be captured. Except for here, we could capture that pawn and we'll be backed up by our bishop. The rook really can't do much. It would just be picked off if we checked on d1. All right, well, our rook is cutting off the king's escape this way. So what can we do? Perhaps we can move our king, pick off the queen, and wreck the pawns over here. Oh, and maybe we can set up some kind of fork. Okay, so I think I have something here. We move the knight with check. And before I do that, let me make sure this doesn't do anything. Here, what? They could just capture our knight. So, and is there a follow-up after that? I don't see anything. Okay, so we probably have to go here with check. The king will be forced to move, unless the queen captures, which is not likely. The king would move here. Now we could pick off the queen, wrecking the pawns, giving our knight time to jump back to c3, forking the king and bishop here. Okay, I think that works. All right, now we can pick off the queen, and then we have the fork here. We just go ahead and material. All right, so that was a 1410 rated problem. Hopefully you had luck with that and you were able to figure it out. Just remember to pause at any time if you need more time to think. On to problem number 3. So what happened here? What is this rook doing? And what do we have going on? Well, we have a passed pawn, but what can this passed pawn do? What can the passed pawn do? If we push it forward, well, there's a possibility of an attack on our rook by the knight to c3 here. And then what? If we move, the rook can pick off our passed pawn. So maybe do we immediately attack the knight? If we attack the knight, then what? The knight could move up here. Then what? Another tricky one. Okay. A rook here to b1. So So rook to b1. Then what? This knight has to move. Say the knight goes here. Then if we try and attack the knight, the pawn can be picked off and it would protect the rook. All right. Do we have any checks? We check, the king just captures, and then so maybe we could push this forward if we have an attack there, but then if we try and check, the pawn is stuck. So I don't know, this one's tricky. If we push the pawn immediately, the knight jumps up there. Is there some kind of trick where, if we tried to block, the rook could just capture. If we capture the pawn, recapture. All right, maybe there's something we can do with a knight move here. Threatening to jump in here. If this pawn moves forward, and I guess we could check, but does that do anything? The king would just move. So I don't know, maybe that's what they want. We move this knight here to the edge of the board. We're threatening to jump in here. If they move forward to stop our knight, we could just check. Once the king moves, then we could pick this pawn off. But what if we move here, the knight attacks us, well then our rook could move here. Oh man. I don't know, what else do we have? Alright, I'm going to try the knight move. Nope, they don't like that. Alright, the other option. See, they wanted that pawn push, but what if they just move here with the knight? Okay, at least with a check. We have to go there. See, now there's this attack. Okay, we would go after the knight, I guess. So here they give up their knight. And well, why would you do that? Because you have the rook and the knight both covering the promotion square. I mean, I guess if you tried to move here, though, would that work? All right, anyway, that's what they wanted. Let's move on to another one. Yeah, here you just pick this off. Okay. All right, well, pawn pushes forward. What do we have here? It looks like a lot of endgames in these problems today. Okay. What can white do? Well, the king is really trapped here in the corner. So do we go here, trapping the king in the corner, threatening to move over? Well, if we move here, either way, the king would be able to escape. So, I mean, we just go here and threaten a mate. That looks to be the way to go. So, king to g6, and we're threatening a back rank mate. The only thing that can be done is for this rook to block it, but then it would still be a mate. All right, well, see, that was 1490, and that one was a lot easier, so I don't know about the rating on these. All right, let's move on to another one. What do we have here? The king was in check and runs here, moving forward. What do we have? What can white do here? Well, what is the threat against us? Well, this is not looking good. There is a mate threat here of rook to h5, checkmating our king because of this rook cutting that square off and the pawns cutting off this, well, this pawn cutting off the light square. So we have a threat against our king, but we have time to attack their king. So if we check, the king would have to move to protect the rook and could only go here. Oh, and then we check again and we're able to pick this off. So check, check. And if they blocked, we check again and then pick that off. But here we're able to grab this, and now if they try and check us here, we can run over here. All right, hopefully you got that one. I'll try and do 5 more if we can squeeze them in. Let's see here. Our queen is under attack with b3. What can we do? Well, an obvious move, because our queen is under attack, is to move it, pick off the knight with check. But let's make sure there's nothing better. I mean, if we try to capture the knight with a check, there's a block. Then what do? Our queen is still under attack. So it's probably better to pick off the knight. Well, let's look at material. We are behind. Let's see. We're behind by 2 pieces, but they have 5 pawns. We have 8. So we have 3 extra pawns. So really we're behind a piece. If we capture this knight, things will be even. Capture with the queen, forking the king and this rook. If they block, we're able to pick off the rook. Queen captures, bishop captures, and then a pawn move could try and trap our bishop, but we could probably still go here, attacking this. Oh, but what if the king moves forward here? Maybe this doesn't work, so let's take a look at this. If we capture with check, if the king moves forward, well, then we just pick off the rook. If there's a block, then we pick off the rook, queen captures, capture. That looks to be the way to go. Let me take one quick look and make sure this bishop check doesn't do something better. So check, the king is trapped, cannot move, so we have to block with the bishop. Then what? Our queen is under attack. So if we capture their bishop, their queen comes out. I don't know, it looks like this is best. And we just capture, capture. All right, so they like that the best. The only thing I'm worried about is if they move this pawn forward, our bishop is kind of trapped in there. We could go after this pawn. And then all they could do is move forward, and then we escape. Although they could push the other pawn, preventing our escape. I don't know. That looks kind of risky, like our bishop could be trapped in there. Okay, on to the next problem. What happened here? The king captures something. Now, look for checks first, as usual. We could capture this bishop, but then the knight would recapture. Maybe we try this. Rook up here. Huh. There is another option. If we capture the bishop, knight captures, then our bishop will be able to go to e4 because the knight will no longer be protecting it, and we can skewer the queen and rook here. So that's a possibility. What does material look like? We have 2 rooks and a queen each. We only have 2 minor pieces versus their 3. So we're behind a piece, but we're ahead a pawn. So we're down by the equivalent of 2 pawns. Is there something better here? What if we go here first, attacking the queen? The queen could just capture and attack our queen. Then what? Then we check, so that might not be good. Because then there would be no protection of the queen. So if we go here with the bishop first, the knight would have to capture. Then we could capture over here with a check. But then what? Capture with a check. The king could just move over. Then what do we do? Try and check again. I don't know. It looks like we just pick this off. Knight recaptures. We attack the queen. Oh, and is the queen trapped? Maybe the queen is just trapped. All right, that works. No, the queen can move over here, though. Can move off to the side. We would just get a rook. So if the queen moved here, queen can escape, but we pick off the rook. All right, last 3 problems. King is attacking our knight. What do we do here? Oh, it looks like, well, let's look at material real quick and see if we can sacrifice more. We're behind by a rook. 5 pawns versus 6, so we're ahead by a pawn, but we're still down the equivalent of 4 pawns. So, do we give up our knight here with a check? Maybe. Because once we move the knight with check, if the king moves, there's an immediate back rank mate. So the knight could be captured, then we check. The king would have to move here to g7, and then our queen could check. And then that would be mate. All right. Oh, come on, move up there. All right, and an interesting pattern here to remember is if you're able to check a king, an enemy king, with the queen covers all the squares on this side and this side of the king, and the diagonal through the middle. The only squares the queen doesn't cover are the light squares here and here. So these other opposite side squares on g8 and h7. So the queen is kind of like an arrow, I guess, covering this side, and through the middle. And then you just have to worry about these two squares here, which the pawn is blocking one and the rook is covering the other. All right, on to number 9. The knight has centralized here, attacking our rook, but it is our turn. What can we do here? Okay, look for checks first. Well, our rook doesn't want to check, or it'll just be captured. So, what about knight? Knight to f2, sacrificing. If there's a capture, well then this rook can come up and back rank mate. This rook would have to move back and block, and then we capture. So, check. Check, block, and a back rank mate. All right, well, hopefully you found that mate in 3+. I don't know exactly how many moves that was. I didn't count them, but that was a 1280 rated problem. And we're down to number 10, the final problem here. So the knight has repositioned, attacking our knight, which is aiming at black's king side with the white queen and knight here lined up, but the bishop is protecting. So, what can we do? Well, we have a check here with this knight. So, pause the video if you need more time to think, but there's an immediate check. The pawn cannot capture because of the pin by the queen. So whenever the king is in check, there are 3 options. Capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run. You can't block a knight. So after knight to h6, your only option is to capture, and that can't be done because of this pin. So the king is forced into the corner. Now, how do we continue? Well, we could just fork the king and queen here, forcing the rook to capture, and then we capture. We go ahead in material there. I don't know. That looks to be the way forward, unless there's some tricky sacrifice here. Okay, if we sacrifice our queen, the bishop can just capture. And I don't see anything after that. If our bishop comes up here, adding more pressure, the knight could just capture. And this bishop is protecting. So probably this move here. All right, and then we continue with our plan, forking the king and queen. The rook is forced to capture. Or if the rook doesn't and the king moves back, we have like tricky little discovered checks. But here we just go ahead and material. All right. Well, that was 1440 rated. I hope you enjoyed these problems. Remember to do regular tactics problems and puzzle solving to help improve your chess and sharpen your tactical skills. As always, feel free to leave any comments. Like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.